Deborra-Lee Furness has taken a swipe at her ex-husband Hugh Jackman after confirming she's filing for divorce.
We are opposites, hate each other.
Speaking for the first time about what she's described as a journey of betrayal.
A love story that once seemed unbreakable is now surrounded by whispers, questions, and a silence that lasted far too long. For years, Deborra-Lee Furness stood beside Hugh Jackman through fame, struggles, and everything in between.
Were you reluctant?
So reluctant. You're never scared to try something. No, it's perfect. I think perfect would be boring.
To the world, they looked unstoppable. But behind the headlines, something changed.
Hugh Jackman's ex says she believes God and the universe is always working, and that belief has helped her navigate the breakdown of her marriage.
Now, as shocking new developments begin to surface, Deborra-Lee is finally starting to break that long silence.
My heart and compassion goes out to everyone who has traversed the traumatic journey, calling the breakup a profound wound that cuts deep.
And the emotions behind it have people asking one question: what really happened behind the scenes of a marriage so many believed would last forever? The truth, it seems, may be far more painful than anyone expected. Love against all odds. Their story began in 1995 on the set of the Australian television drama Corelli. At the time, Hugh Jackman was just 25 years old and still finding his place in the entertainment industry. Fresh out of drama school, he was relatively unknown and eager to prove himself. Across from him on set was Deborra-Lee Furness, a respected and successful actress.
They met in 1995 on the set of the Australian TV show Corelli.
I don't mind.
Well, I do.
Who had already built a strong career in Australia. She was confident, experienced, and well-established in the industry. The difference in their careers and the 10-year age gap between them quickly drew attention. From the very beginning, the relationship faced quite scrutiny from people who questioned the unusual pairing. Despite the whispers and raised eyebrows, the connection between them was clear almost immediately. Working closely together during filming created a natural bond. What started as a professional partnership soon turned into something much deeper. Hugh, still early in his career, admired Deborra-Lee's confidence, intelligence, and warmth. For Deborra-Lee, Hugh's passion and determination stood out. Their relationship moved forward quickly, fueled by a sense of certainty that both of them seemed to share. Just 4 months after they began dating, Hugh decided he did not want to wait any longer. He proposed, surprising many people around them who felt the relationship had developed at lightning speed. Yet for the couple, the decision felt natural rather than rushed. The sense of commitment between them was strong from the beginning, and both appeared confident that they had found something lasting. On April 11, 1996,
Furness and Jackman got married in 1996 after meeting the year before on the Australian TV show Corelli.
they were married in an intimate ceremony at St. John's Church in Toorak, Australia. The wedding was simple and private, attended by close friends and family rather than crowds of celebrities. It reflected the kind of relationship they seemed to want: personal, grounded, and focused on building a life together rather than chasing public attention. In photographs from the day, the couple appeared joyful and completely certain about the future they were beginning. At the start of their marriage, Deborra-Lee was the more established figure in the industry. Her career had already taken off, while Hugh was still working to build his reputation. As his opportunities slowly began to grow, Deborra-Lee made a choice that would quietly shape their relationship for years. She stepped back from some of her own projects to support Hugh's rising career. This decision was not dramatic or widely discussed at the time, but it reflected the level of commitment she brought into the partnership. Deborra-Lee was constantly there for Hugh during those early years when his profession was starting to get noticed. Many individuals afterwards said that her strong loyalty was shown by the sacrifices she made. The entertainment industry can put a lot of stress on relationships, especially when a celebrity starts to rise. But Deborra-Lee stayed focused on building a solid life together. Hugh later said that their encounter felt like it was meant to happen. He said in interviews years later that he knew very early on that Deborra-Lee was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. People saw their marriage as a love story based on trust and support because of such reflections. The age disparity was always a topic of conversation in the media, but Deborra-Lee handled the limelight with quiet confidence. Instead of responding to the criticism, she thought on the relationship itself. As Hugh's reputation progressively grew outside Australia and onto bigger stages, the couple kept creating their life together. At the time, their connection seemed to show that love could grow stronger even when people were watching. Deborra-Lee's constant support and Hugh's growing success made it seem like they were in a relationship based on loyalty and shared goals. Many fans who were not there thought it was the start of a long-lasting Hollywood love tale. But looking back, those first several years also showed how the connection worked on a deeper level. Deborra-Lee was the bigger star when they got married, but as Hugh's career took off, she put a lot of her own career on hold. What looked like a great collaboration also involved small sacrifices that wouldn't be clear until many years later. But back then, none of that seemed like a warning sign. It just seemed like two individuals who had found love in an odd area and thought they had found something that would endure forever. Trials, triumphs, and hidden sacrifices. The years after marriage were filled with both immense joy and deep heartbreak. Deborra-Lee and Hugh faced multiple miscarriages, and the grueling process of IVF treatments tested their resilience. Instead of letting despair take hold, they chose adoption, a path Deborra-Lee embraced fully. She became a quiet advocate for adoption reform and support systems for families, channeling her experiences into helping others navigate the emotional maze. In 2000, they welcomed their son, Oscar, followed by their daughter Ava in 2005. The adoptions, as Deborra-Lee often described, felt guided by something greater, a sense of purpose that gave meaning to their struggles. While their family life was growing, Hugh's career skyrocketed. The turn of the millennium saw him take on X-Men, propelling Wolverine into global icon status and earning multiple Oscar nominations. Behind the scenes, Deborra-Lee remained the steady anchor, managing the household and protecting their children from the intrusive glare of paparazzi. She deliberately stepped back from her own spotlight to nurture his, quietly sacrificing her career ambitions for the sake of their family. This selfless role strengthened the partnership but also brought isolation, leaving her life largely defined by the demands of her husband's growing fame. Deborra-Lee's support never wavered, even as Hugh became famous around the world. She went to premieres, dealt with the press, and kept their kids safe from the public by keeping them in a private space. Hugh regularly talked about how important she was to his achievement in public accolades, calling her the foundation of his success. But even though others praised her, Deborra-Lee was deeply affected emotionally. Repeated IVF treatments took a toll on both the body and mind, leaving behind wounds that would endure forever. The constant attention that came with fame made every rumor or public mistake worse. Their friendship seemed solid even through these hard times. The couple stayed strong through the ups and downs of their relationship and showed the world that they were together. Deborra-Lee's sacrifices, tolerance, and steadfast dedication showed that she was a partner who placed family first, even when it meant giving up her own dreams. But even if the outer world perceived a great partnership, the private cost of these sacrifices built up slowly. The constant stress, together with the poor balance between job and caring for others, set the stage for future problems in a subtle but important way. Looking back, these tests and victories made Deborra-Lee into an amazing person, strong, caring, and determined. Her direction via adoption, her care during family growth, and her determination to deal with fame's intrusions show that she is quite morally and emotionally strong. Yet, as history would later reveal, the very dedication that strengthened their early marriage also exposed her to a vulnerability that would become painfully apparent. These years silently planted the roots of a deep wound. The tension between personal sacrifice and public expectation quietly shaped what would happen next. The anniversary glow, cracks appear. By 2021, Deborra-Lee and Hugh had reached a huge milestone, 25 years together. To the world, it seemed like a perfect love story. Hugh even posted a heartfelt message calling their connection destiny, celebrating all the ups and downs they had overcome. Fans saw a couple who had survived Hollywood, personal struggles, and family challenges, looking stronger than ever. But behind the happy posts and smiles, things weren't exactly as perfect as they seemed. Sometimes, the most sparkling pictures hide cracks underneath. Hugh's life changed in a very public way in 2022. He was in The Music Man on Broadway with Sutton Foster. Everything on stage appeared professional, lively, and full of energy. But there were rumors of a closeness that was more than just acting. Deborra-Lee spent a lot of time away from Hugh while the world watched him shine. She felt more alone than ever. The love and support she had always given was now tested in ways she couldn't show publicly. In interviews and on social media, the couple seemed happy, but things were different behind the scenes. Fans rejoiced during the anniversary parties, thinking the romance was still going strong. But the extended preparations, the strong media attention, and Hugh's emphasis on his co-star made them feel far apart. What once had been a partnership built on shared experiences and teamwork started to feel uneven. Deborra-Lee had to take care of the house, the kids, and her personal feelings while putting up a brave face for the public. It felt like being in the spotlight when your heart was elsewhere. And here's the twist. The age difference that had sparked rumors at first now seemed to echo in a different way. Deborra-Lee had been the stable, directing influence in their relationship at first. She was 10 years older and had more experience, which helped Hugh rise. Now, some of the same things that had been going on were going the other way, which made the gaps in their relationship more obvious. It appeared like a wonderful marriage in public, but behind closed doors, things were getting worse. Fans didn't see how much she worried at night, how much she gave up without telling anyone, or how hard it was for her to watch her spouse spend so much time on other things. Deborra-Lee, that had a hard time emotionally during this time, being alone, stressed out, and always having to look joyful, took a toll on me. Even when everything seemed perfect on the outside, the private truth was more complicated. The anniversary parties were fun in public, but they also reminded people of how far apart they were. The love that had helped them through hard times like miscarriages, IVF, and work stress was now under a subtle but real strain. And here's where it gets even worse. These minor fissures were signs of worse problems to come. Deborra-Lee's loyalty, support, and strength that she had built up over the years were being challenged in ways she had never seen before. Even while there were public tributes and lovely messages, they couldn't hide the quiet distance that was growing between them. Fans only saw the brilliance, while the narrative was far more fragile behind the scenes. The shocking split. On September 15, 2023, the world was stunned when Hugh Jackman and Deborra-Lee Furness released a joint statement announcing their separation.
Deborra-Lee Furness has taken a swipe at her ex-husband Hugh Jackman after confirming she's filing for divorce.
Nearly 30 years of marriage, decades of shared highs and heartbreaking lows, now came to a public pause. On paper, the statement sounded polite and amicable. They spoke of individual growth and mutual respect, but for fans who had followed their love story for decades, the timing raised questions. Coming so soon after Hugh's intense Broadway run in The Music Man, whispers of emotional distance and rumored connections began to circulate. The split was the first visible fracture in a marriage many believed was unbreakable. After years of shared struggles, IVF heartbreaks, adoption journeys, and navigating fame together, this announcement felt like a punch to the heart. While the world speculated, Deborra-Lee quietly moved to establish her independence. By May 23, 2025, she filed for divorce. The proceedings were finalized in June, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in her life. To symbolize this fresh start, she purchased a New York penthouse valued at approximately $1.7 million, a sanctuary in the city, and a statement of autonomy. In the meantime, Hugh's public life changed quickly. By October 2024, he was walking the red carpet with Sutton Foster, his Broadway co-star. Their professional relationship had been in the news for months. By January 2025, the press had taken pictures of their outings and disseminated them widely, showing how much they cared for each other. Deborra-Lee was developing a quiet new existence, while Hugh's world swiftly mixed with public displays with someone else. The difference was striking. The money issues made things even more tense. They didn't have a prenup when they got married, so they had to work out how to split up a large fortune, which is thought to be between $120 million and $170 million. Fans were curious about how the material that had been shared and built up over decades of work would be handled. Deborra-Lee's penthouse was more than simply a place to live. It was a sign of safety, freedom, and a conscious move forward in getting back her own space and identity after over 30 years of giving in and making sacrifices. The divorce was rough on my feelings. Deborra-Lee has been a solid support for Hugh throughout his career, from his early days on Australian television to his rise to global fame as Wolverine.
Welcome to Hugh Jackman's office, the set of his latest action film, Wolverine.
She did this while discreetly maintaining their family life. She had problems with IVF, problems with adoption, and the relentless scrutiny that comes with fame, which often got in the way of her own efforts. Fans were shocked to see the marriage end so openly and so fast. And for her, it was a very personal upheaval. The penthouse was both a real and a metaphorical space for her to heal, reorganize, and remake her life on her own terms. The fact that the breakup was public made it even worse. The media and social media watched every choice, every purchase, and every action. The message talked about respect for each other, but the fact that Hugh was clearly in a new relationship with Sutton made it feel real and raw. Long-term supporters had a hard time accepting this new reality, which was very different from the loving pair they had adored for decades. The tale quickly became a media sensation. This part of Deborra-Lee's life shows how strong she is when her heart is broken. Even though everyone was watching her every move, she made room for herself by choosing freedom, privacy, and control. Her New York penthouse was more than just a location. It was a statement that she could and would keep going on her own terms. The story also showed how strong she was, even though the marriage was over. Decades of loyalty, support, and love had prepared her for this moment. The surprise breakup reminds fans that even the most famous and loved relationships can encounter problems that aren't obvious, and that strength frequently comes from taking little, intentional actions. Deborra-Lee's next steps, away from the public breakup, would soon show her how to take back her life, dignity, and happiness. This would illustrate that heartbreak can make you stronger, give you power, and start over. Hugh moves on. By late 2025, Hugh Jackman's life had entered a new, highly public chapter. After the split from Deborra-Lee, he was spotted attending events and vacations with Broadway star Sutton Foster, sparking widespread speculation. The whispers intensified after the AFI Fest in October 2025, where their relationship was clearly on display. Fans and media alike watched closely as Hugh's next moves unfolded, marking a sharp contrast with the quiet dignity Deborra-Lee maintained. Soon, people started talking about how Hugh had proposed while they were on vacation in Costa Rica at the end of the year. Reports said that the times were full of public displays of affection, laughter, and romantic gestures, which only added to the conjecture about how close they were becoming. In early 2026, people started talking about preparations for a small wedding in New York and a honeymoon in Europe after that. People stated the ceremony was tiny and just for close friends and theater co-workers, which showed that they wanted to keep it private. However, the timing and quick flow of events caused a lot of internet reactions. Even though everyone was excited, things didn't always go as planned. Hugh and Sutton had a big personal problem. Their kids, Oscar, 25, and Ava, 20, were very loyal to their mother, Deborra-Lee. Some sources say that the kids were unwilling to fully accept the new relationship, which made preparing the wedding take longer and more difficult. Hugh allegedly said he wanted to be respectful to his kids and offer them time and care, even though there was a lot of public pressure to move on swiftly. This family dynamic showed how complicated things can still be emotionally after a breakup, and how the effects of a high-profile marriage can affect other relationships. Hugh's views on prenuptial agreements were another thing that made things tense. Sources say that he finds prenups distasteful, even though he is thought to have between $120 million and $170 million in assets, without any legal protections in place. His quick move toward marriage with Sutton raised the stakes financially and in the public eye. People in Hollywood talked about the hazards, especially because Hugh had been generous and shared assets with his ex-wife during their marriage.
Hugh Jackman and his wife, Deborra-Lee Furness, announced publicly and together through a statement that they're ending their marriage.
People have observed the difference between Hugh's highly public new life and Deborra-Lee's quietness. While Hugh's love life and wedding plans made the news, Deborra-Lee preferred to stay out of the public eye and focus on her own family, career, and personal growth. Many others saw her silence as polite restraint, a choice to put her health and happiness ahead of public attention. While some supporters were happy with Hugh's efforts, others felt betrayed because the timing of the events seemed to eclipse almost 3 decades of his previous marriage. The story, as it unfolds, shows how hard it is to find a balance between personal satisfaction, family loyalty, and what other people expect of you. Hugh's new chapter is full of excitement and romance, but there are also a lot of emotional and family issues going on. The kids' commitment to Deborra-Lee and the fact that there was no prenup made things hard, both logistically and emotionally. Deborra-Lee's calm presence, on the other hand, shows strength, caution, and a focus on her own route forward. The breaking silence. Deborra-Lee Furness finally spoke up in May 2025, over 2 years after she had been silent. She gave the world a glimpse into the sorrow she had been through. The timing was interesting. After staying out of the public eye after the separation and divorce filing,
Hugh Jackman's ex-wife, Deborra-Lee Furness, has officially filed for divorce.
Her words had weight, emotion, and a hint of truth. In interviews with big publications like the Daily Mail and People, she spoke with empathy, recognizing not only her personal anguish, but also the pain of anyone who had been betrayed in life. She called the voyage a profound wound that cuts deep, which showed how deep her sadness was without making it sound too dramatic. Someone close to her said it plainly, a real kick in the teeth. Those words echoed the shock of seeing a love story that had been formed on years of loyalty and mutual sacrifice fall apart in just a few months. There was no mistaking the reference. Hugh's quick public relationship with Sutton Foster.
Insiders are shedding light on Hugh Jackman's relationship with his Broadway co-star Sutton Foster.
The rumors of an emotional affair during rehearsals, and the fact that he was happy in public while she was strong in private. Deborra-Lee's calm voice, on the other hand, stressed strength over resentment. She didn't attack or make things sound worse. Instead, her message focused on grace, dignity, and how powerful it is to deal with pain by thinking about it. It was said that Deborra-Lee kept a secret diary during the divorce, in addition to making public declarations. This diary was like a book that told the story of her emotional journey. People eventually called this divorce diary a tool for empowerment, a way to turn personal pain into understanding, insight, and, in the end, strength. It gave her a way to talk about her sentiments of betrayal, anger, and sadness, while also putting them in the context of a bigger story of her own growth. For years, she silently gave up her own career to help Hugh's spectacular rise, dealing with the trappings of Hollywood life while also taking care of her family and being in the public eye. Her silence during the early days of their breakup showed that she wanted to keep her private life private and that she was being smart in a world that frequently values show over empathy. It was both dramatic and sad to break that stillness in May 2025. She talked about how the split shocked, hurt, and made people angry without getting angry herself. They also gave us a look at how a long-term relationship can affect your mental and emotional health when there are rumors of cheating, and things shift quickly. Fans and onlookers saw her words as a chance to let out her feelings, claim her voice, make her point of view known, and remind the world of how faithful and honest she has been for almost 30 years. The tension in this chapter is made worse by the fact that Hugh is moving forward in public, while Deborra-Lee is quietly coming to terms with her situation. He swiftly moved on to a new romantic chapter, but she used the break to think about things, reflect, and finally speak with authority. Her voice represented both the sadness of losing someone close to her and the strength of being strong and thoughtful. For those who were following the tale, the statement was a reminder that betrayal is not simply a passing moment, but a deeply personal wound that needs both distance and fortitude to face. The memoir, Storm. After the anguish of a public breakup, Deborra-Lee Furness took charge of her tale in a way that shocked many. Reports said she was working on a bold, dramatic memoir by November 2025. It wasn't just about talking about personal grief. It was also about turning it into strength, wisdom, and advocacy. Her memoir gave people a way to appreciate decades of dedication, sacrifice, and tenacity. It showed how she dealt with love, betrayal, and personal reinvention after being in the public eye for almost 30 years. One of the most interesting things about this memoir is how it supports co-parenting. Deborra-Lee's kids, Oscar and Ava, stayed steadfastly loyal during the breakup, and her writing stresses how important it is to keep these relationships strong during tough times. The book teaches other parents going through a divorce important lessons about how to treat their children with respect.
Now to the Australian celebrity scene and Deborra-Lee Furness, Hugh Jackman's estranged wife. Well, she has broken her silence. And what is the catalyst for this?
Okay, so while they split in 2023, she finally officially filed for divorce.
Keep lines of communication open and provide stability, even when their adult relationships fall apart. She converts what could have been just a story of betrayal into a way to teach and help other families going through the same thing by putting her own story next to advice for families. The memoir is more than just about co-parenting. It's also a way for her to keep working for adoption reform. Deborra-Lee has been fighting for policies that make adoption more open, easy to get, and kind for years. She shows how personal anguish may lead to public benefit by connecting her own story to her work as an advocate. Readers learn how she dealt with pain and loss while still being an activist. This shows that reinventing yourself doesn't mean forgetting the past. It is using it to make a difference. The memoir also shines a focus on Hollywood's unfair treatment of people of different ages. People talked and judged when 25-year-old Hugh Jackman started dating Deborra-Lee, who was 10 years older than him and already well-known. Deborra-Lee's memoir uses this comparison to explore long-held biases in the industry and challenge ideas about gender, power, and how people see things. By doing this, she converts a personal story about loss into a larger discussion about fairness, power, and self-worth. The memoir recounts how Deborra-Lee dealt with the stress of losing someone and getting help from a higher power, which she often used to explain how she stayed strong. Instead of giving in to bitterness, she puts faith, hope, and contemplation into each chapter. This inner guidance is a common thread throughout her biography, showing how she restored her sense of self, purpose, and direction while being closely watched by the public. Hugh is said to have been unhappy with the memoir's examination, but that just shows how powerful her voice is. He quickly started a new relationship, but she remained thoughtful, careful, and confident in her story. She takes control of the story and changes the discourse. It's not about shame, retribution, or getting back at someone. It's about getting back your dignity, teaching others and motivating other women to put themselves, their children, and their advocacy first. The memoir changes the story from one of betrayal to one of strength. It shows you how to reinvent yourself by turning your own problems into lessons for everyone. Deborra-Lee shows that even when a love story ends in tragedy, the aftermath can be a place to make a difference, speak out, and inspire others. Her narrative reminds others who read or see it that resilience is not formed by avoiding pain, but by facing it, learning from it, and utilizing it to inspire meaningful action. Deborra-Lee has finished the empowerment arc. She has moved on from the pain of betrayal via writing, advocacy, and introspection. Her voice, which had been quiet for a long time in public, now has power, understanding, and inspiration. She turns pain into strength, showing how to be brave and reinvent yourself in a world that often prizes show over content. And that's the full story behind Deborra-Lee finally breaking her silence. A story of loyalty, heartbreak, and reclaiming power. If you found this eye-opening and want more behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.